Special video for you guys. In light of Robert Duvall's passing, I decided to talk about an old favorite of mine, Secondhand Lions. Released in September of 2003, starring Robert Duvall, Michael Caine, Haley Joel Osment, Keira Sedgwick, amongst other people. It's a story of a young boy who's brought to his honorary uncle's farm, his great-uncles actually, who supposedly have a huge pile of cash that they're sitting on. And over the course of his time that he spends there, he starts to form a bond with his uncles and learning the stories about all the adventures that they had and how they acquired the money, while also dealing with the stories and legends of the two brothers from the nearby town who are supposedly not what they seem to be. I'll admit, I almost hesitated to do this, but I felt like something was stirring inside of me to go with it anyway. In honor of Robert Duvall, wherever he may be in the hereafter, I do this for him. Because this movie and this speech that he gives to Haley Joel Osment, or Walter, we'll talk about that later, hit a lot harder now on this recent rewatch, even more so when I watched it at 13 years old for the first time. I wish I got to see this movie in theaters, but I guess for some reason, no, actually I do remember. I think my mom or my dad might have gotten at Blockbuster at the time. I'd say it's one of those feel-good movies. The official consensus on Rotten Tomatoes is that it's wholesome, yet schmaltzy. I don't know, I feel like that word schmaltzy is a little too harsh of a word. There are moments like that, yes, but not everything has to be dark and moody and brooding or cynical or whatever. Life's not all about the lows. I know I probably sound like an old head when I say this, and I know that there's some movies out there, if I were to look around hard enough, that are very similar to Secondhand Lions, but this coming from the 2000s decade, I guess me growing up during that time, or at least being a teenager during that time, or a preteen in the year 2003, you don't really see many movies like this anymore. If it were to come out today, I guarantee you that it would be released on streaming. Really at the heart of this movie, I would say, is a very effective coming-of-age story. Walter is this 14-year-old boy whose mother is extremely and wildly irresponsible, wants to run off and party and date all these guys, not really giving much attention to her son, leaving him in the hands of her uncles, and hopefully trying to acquire some of that cash or all of it that she's been hearing about for so long, her whole life, since I guess it's the family secret, quote unquote. Correctly, she assumes that these two guys are going to be a positive influence on Walter, who, from what we can tell, doesn't have a father in his life. None of the three are happy about this current situation. Hey, we don't know nothing about kids. So if you need something, find it yourself, and better yet, learn to do without. As the film goes on, we see them doing certain things by scaring off any incoming salesmen, since everybody's been talking about where they got the money. Naturally, I think a lot of people would want to get their hands on that stuff, even from the likes of their relatives who are eager to get their hands on it. But thanks to the influence of Walter, they decide to purchase some of the stuff from the salesmen, trying to give themselves some fun to do rather than eking their ways through life, such as that device that launches the disc into the air, which I think is called the Sporting of Kings or something or other. It's one of those things where you go, pull! And you pull it and you fire your gun into the air, shooting the disc, blowing it to smithereens, basically. Sorry, don't mind that. That was a truck with a really loud exhaust pipe outside my house. Walter even says to them, which causes them to spend their money for a change, what's the good of having all that money if you're not going to spend it? And I know some people, including members of my own family, who have a really big inheritance and a lot of wealth. And they spend their money wisely, but they were smart enough to realize, hey, look, we can't just do nothing with this money. We spent many years of earning it. Let's try to blow it on ourselves from time to time. At least responsibly. The thing that really sticks out to me is seeing this father-son-like bond growing between Garth and Hub and their nephew Walter. They turn out to be the unlikely parental figures that Walter needs, a lot more than his own mother May will ever be to him. And Hub and Garth turn out to be the kind of people that are very honest and direct and don't really have anything to hide. Michael Caine as Garth, I cannot sing Michael Caine's praises enough. That guy is one of the best actors that's ever lived. I hope that we get to keep him around just a little bit longer, because I heard he came out of retirement recently. Let's face it, this guy's not getting any younger. And after what we experienced recently with Robert Duvall, please, God, universe, don't send him home just yet. Just keep him around a little longer. Just a little bit longer. And it was a little weird hearing him speak with a Texas drawl, because we all know him to have his famous Cockney accent. One day, I was in Burma. A ruby the size of a tangerine. The bandit had been throwing them away. Okay, that's enough of that. But he tells Walter the story of how he and Hub disappeared for about 40 years when they took a trip to Europe right when the First World War broke out. They got shanghaied into the French Foreign Legion and fought in all these different battles over the next 40 years in both world wars. Hub, being a restless figure and always feeling the need to do something, is what got them there in the first place. So as opposed to Garth, who wanted to just live a simple yet exciting life by doing safari work. We learn that Hub went on these big escapades and fighting all these different warlords in North Africa, which got the attention of a handmaiden to a princess in this one country named Jasmine. The two eventually meet, and of course, as you know, they fall in love. But we don't hear about the whole story in one sitting. It's all through 4 different scenarios. One night during a campfire when Hub is walking around sleepwalking, then the next day when Hub has to go to the hospital after a heart attack, and then later on when he's giving the speech to these young hoods who he gets into a fight with. We'll get to that later. And even the final part of the story when Walter has to ask Hub what happened to Jasmine eventually. Tim McCanley's, hopefully I got that name correct, the director and the writer of this movie, smartly spreads the story out and giving us in certain doses when the moment is right. I actually knew this beforehand, but watching this movie today, I recognized the actor who played young Hub, and I remembered, oh wait a minute, that's Christian Kane from Just Married. If you haven't seen Just Married with Ashton Kutcher and the late Brittany Murphy, Christian Kane plays the ex-boyfriend of Brittany Murphy's character, Peter. I think it's time for him and I to tangle! If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. I really like how Garth tells the story, and Michael Caine's performance really elevates it for me, whereas I think any other actor, it probably wouldn't have been as strong. Michael Caine's got this aura about him. Whenever he tells a story, it immediately, from my experience, locks you right in. It's a common thing that you see in various characters he's done throughout his career. There's always a little backstory that he likes to give on a character that he's playing, including the story of the bandit from The Dark Knight. Those flashbacks that we get when they're off in Europe and North Africa, they're actually really exciting and fun, and it almost gave me an Indiana Jones vibe. I have to admit though, some of the way the sets look, it looked obviously a little too much like a set, almost like a theater production. Not that I'm complaining or anything. I don't think they had a huge budget to make it look a lot more realistic. I'm just saying in certain shots I went, that looks a little too much like a theater setting. Although when Hub was fighting off these guys with a sword, I half expected him to just pull out his pistol and go, pfft, like Indiana Jones does to that one swordsman. On top of that, he's wearing a fedora. Connections? As for Haley Joel Osment, he was already renowned for his role in The Sixth Sense, where he got Oscar nominated, starts very introverted and sheltered and easily startled. And throughout the movie, as we see his uncles taking him under their wing, he starts to gradually come out of his shell. Hearing the story from his uncles, particularly Uncle Garth, giving him the confidence he needs to stand up for himself and stand on his own 2 feet and what his values will eventually turn into. I do kind of wish it turned out better for Haley Joel Osment in the years since then. He has unfortunately experienced some legal trouble. I don't think he's doing terribly. Unfortunately, it was the way of Macaulay Culkin for a while, at least until recent years where Macaulay Culkin straightened himself out. Hopefully Haley can experience something similar. We'll see. But similar to the likes of Tobey Maguire, he has this sense of innocence and curiosity about him that I can't really envision any other child actor doing as well as he did. But there's also a lot of humorous moments that are thrown in here, and a lot of that comes from Robert Duvall. Particularly when he has to go to the hospital after his heart attack, he literally starts to throw stuff out the door. Where's my pants? Where's my pants? Who put me in here? You two! Home is that way. I want to go this way. Leading us right into the fight that he gets into with the other hoods at the bar. I remember as a kid thinking, wait a minute, an old guy's gonna fight off some teenagers? That's dumb. But seeing it play out and how he just clobbers them like that, I was in shock and awe over that scene. And even now, I still am amazed. While we're on the topic, Robert Duvall. You know, I have to admit, this was tough. There's only a few certain celebrity deaths that really got to me. Robin Williams, Heath Ledger were probably the big ones. This one didn't really hit for me until we got to this moment where he gives a piece of his what every boy needs to know about being a man speech after he reveals what happened to Jasmine. Which, real quick, turns out that Jasmine actually died in childbirth along with their baby. And Hub felt a huge sense of heartbreak as a result, went back to the Legion, the only thing he knew how to do. And eventually he and his brother found their way back to Texas. We see him giving the speech to the boys that he got into a fight with earlier, but we don't hear it. And we never hear the speech in its full form. We only hear enough to get an idea of what it's like. I gotta tell you though, when he starts saying that, no joke, I started bawling. I'm starting to cry right now talking about it, but oh God. Now, I'm gonna try to contain myself here, but when he hesitates to say this about true love.
Love. True love never dies.
I felt that. My God. I have to admit, I haven't seen a whole ton of Robert Duvall's work. I've only seen a small handful, with my experience anyway. Secondhand Lions. We Own the Night with Mark Wahlberg and Joaquin Phoenix. Not exactly a great movie, but he has his moments in there. And of course, The Godfather. And he actually played General Robert E. Lee from the movie Gods and Generals, which also came out in 2003. I was really into the Civil War when I was a kid. It's a different story. That was actually the first time I ever heard of Robert Duvall. And then when I saw him in this, I went, oh yeah, the guy who played General Lee. But also in that scene, Walter makes a huge plea to Uncle Hub, making him come to terms with Jasmine's death. Because we see in the movie when he names that lion that they're supposedly going to shoot in the cage, but they turn out not to because the lion's too old. When he names the lion Jasmine, it strikes a nerve with Hub, causing him to storm off in anger. And it makes Hub realize that he does have a responsibility as an uncle, and in a way a father figure to this young boy, to stick around and be the person that he needs him to be. It actually hit me on a personal level in light of my grandmother's passing. My dad's mom, just a little FYI, and seeing how my father and his brothers are dealing with her passing. I can't even talk about it without getting emotional, but I'm just saying that for me, it resonated very deeply. But there's a lot of funny moments, like I was saying earlier, involving Robert Duvall, but in other areas too of this movie. Hey, you in the crate! Get your live butt out of there!
So, kid, you want to take care of it? Nurse it back to health? Good. Then we shoot it.
That's your solution for everything, right, Hub? Just shoot it? And even when they realize that they bought a bunch of corn seeds when they're trying to grow in their own garden, thinking that they have beets, tomatoes, potatoes, but then Walter notices that the leaves look the same, and they realize that, oh, we just bought a bunch of corn, we didn't buy different seeds. Wait one damn minute here. One detail that I always loved about these two guys, these two brothers, even though Hub is very restless and likes to do his own thing, Garth is kind of like the guardrail for Hub. If you're going to think about it in simplistic terms, Hub's the dad, Garth is the mom in this situation, like in this moment.
Come on. No, you, not me, no. Get out of the car.
In a parental sense, that would be my mom saying that to my dad. And in a sibling sense, that would be my Uncle Paul saying that to my father, his brother. Michael, get out of the car. Eventually, Walter's mother comes back with this really peculiar guy named Stan, who's supposedly a private investigator, telling him this really crazy story about Hub and Garth being mafia hitmen, or actually bank robbers from the 20s and 30s, and that Jasmine was left for dead during one of their heists. But due to his experience with these uncles, he starts to see holes in their stories and their desires to find the money. It doesn't take a person with a brainstem to figure this out, that they just want the money. They don't care about trying to protect Walter. They're just greedy. And Stan is very abusive, punching Walter in the stomach and slapping him across the face on the ground. But not before Walter uses Hub's line that he used against the Sheik many years ago, defend yourself, kicking him right below the equator. That is just a thing of beauty. On top of that, you have the lion Jasmine seeing Walter getting attacked, goes out, attacking Stan, but then her heart gives out in all the excitement, which causes her to die. Oh, I actually miss that lion now. Walter eventually ends up staying with his uncles when he realizes that his mother has no intentions of leaving Stan. To be honest, it's actually a blessing that he is able to convince her to let him go back with his uncles. Because some women, let's be honest, they weren't meant to be mothers. Paraphrasing Yondu, she may have been your mother, boy, but she wasn't your mommy. But then we fast forward to many years later when Walter's an adult, a cartoonist actually, who writes these comic strips, kind of like a Calvin and Hobbes type of comic strip, or Peanuts. He gets the news from the local sheriff that his uncles have passed away, flying in a biplane from World War I crashing into their barn. We saw some of that in the opening. It was like a cold opening of sorts, and then most of the movie is a flashback to his childhood when he meets up with his uncles. Adult Walter is played by Josh Lucas. When he arrives, he gets a will from the sheriff that he's going to get all their money, and this helicopter for this petroleum company comes by, and this gentleman who comes along with his son turns out to be the Sheik's grandson. Finally, a confirmation to us and Walter that all the stories that Garth told him were true. Because there is this sort of uncertainty that's lingering throughout this movie, where you hear all these stories about the McCann brothers being mafia hitmen, bank robbers from the 20s and 30s, but then you hear all the stories from Garth and you think, oh, wait a minute, that actually sounds more accurate. But there's still some sort of uncertainty until this moment happens. And when the guy says, a very wealthy Sheik, Walter gets this big smile on his face that all that stuff was true. Kind of makes me wish that we saw a short film from the Sheik's perspective on how he felt about the two brothers.
He called them his most honored adversaries. The only men who ever outsmarted me.
There was actually a different ending that they filmed for this, where this huge conglomerate of royalty from wherever the Sheik is from comes by and confirms to Walter that all the stories were true. I don't hate that ending, but I honestly prefer the one that they went with here. It's a very simple and quiet one, but it's a heartwarming confirmation that everything that we thought was possibly not true was actually true. And the final line of the question where the boy says they really lived, and Walter ends with, yeah, they really lived. I swear, guys, I'm trying not to get emotional here, but in light of Robert Duvall's passing, there's just sort of this gratefulness, I suppose, that I feel, where he lived a really long life, and he did all these great things and made a huge impact on so many people. And even for me personally, with my grandma, who lived to be 92. I hope and pray to God that I get to live as long as they do. Even with all the health problems that will come my way eventually by going to old age, I want to be able to live as long as I can and have a positive influence on people. Stan Lee managed to do that as well, and all those people I mentioned, they are now enjoying eternal peace in the hereafter. I mean, I'm not looking to join that side anytime soon. I'm just saying that let's make the most of the time that we have now. I don't mean to preach, but yeah. I'm going to stop right there because I'm starting to get emotional just talking about this. I apologize for ruining the whole thing for you, but if you haven't seen Secondhand Lions, give it a watch. I don't think you'll be disappointed. If anything, do it for Robert Duvall's memory. He more than so deserves it. So that's all I have for you guys. Thank you all so much for watching. Just let me know down below what your thoughts are on this movie if you've seen it. If you'd like to see more from me, just hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Later.